Hello my friends, today we will be taking a look at Panasonic's new mid-range mirrorless camera G95, also known as the G90 and G91. G95 is a successor of very popular G85, which was actually my first mirrorless camera, so I am very interested to see what has been improved in the current generation. I am still a big fan of sub $1,000 mid-range mirrorless cameras. G95 doesn't really bring out any new technology, but Panasonic is still offering a lot in this category. G95 uses the same sensor as the G9 and GH5, it shoots 4K video, it has in-body image stabilization, V-lock and weather sealing, plus one special feature that is rarely being mentioned, so let's see how it performs. Let's start with the build quality. I can already say that the G95 is the best camera in class in terms of the build quality. It actually feels super solid and quite premium. The materials are very high quality, the coating looks great, and I especially like the texture on the rubberized surface that has been carried over from Lumix S full frame line. Unlike most competitors, G95 is also weather sealed, so there are gaskets around the doors and ports. It is a little bit larger than the G85, but noticeably smaller than the G9. Overall, big thumbs up for the build quality. Panasonic definitely did not disappoint in this regard. As I have said, the G95 uses the same 20.2 megapixel micro four thirds sensor as the G9, GH5 and the GX9. The image quality is basically identical to those cameras, so there isn't really anything new that I can tell you about that. I still think that it is a very good sensor, it has really good dynamic range, which is actually better than on Canon's newest APS-C sensor. The highest ISO that I would use on this sensor ranges from 1600 to 6400 depending on the scene. It is in my opinion a worthy upgrade over the 16 megapixel sensor in the G85. I appreciate the extra resolution, the dynamic range and low light performance is a bit better thanks to the newer technology. It is not a day and night difference, but the improvements are noticeable. I generally think that micro four thirds sensor makes a lot of sense in this category. It is smaller than APS-C and full frame, so it leaves more space for the in-body image stabilization, heat dispersion, and other features that wouldn't be available otherwise. It is not as good as new 26.1 megapixel APS-C sensor in Fuji X-T30, that one provides the best image quality in class, but it is not stabilized, which is a significant downside in comparison with the G95. Panasonic also has very nice out-of-camera colors. I like the standard picture style, JPEGs are relatively saturated and vibrant, so if you don't intend to edit your images, G95 will still provide good results. Big advantage over the competition is that the G95 has in-body image stabilization rated for 5 stops. It works great. It is by far the best in-body image stabilization amongst the competition. Something like 1 full second at 12mm is not a problem at all. It makes a huge difference if you are shooting handheld video. If you use it with stabilized lens like 12 to 16mm Lumix or Leica, the in-body image stabilization and optical image stabilization will work together and you will get even better results. There is also electronic image stabilization and IS lock mode that will make your footage look like it was shot on a tripod if you don't mind some extra crop. Regarding the handling, that is great on G95. The grip is very well shaped because it is a bit larger than most competitors, so it also holds better. There are now 3 command dials including the thumb dial that I use for changing the size of autofocus point. White balance, ISO and exposure compensation buttons have been added on the top of the camera, just like on the G9 and GH5, which I appreciate a lot. The backside also looks similar to the G9 or even the S1, so I'm glad that Panasonic is streamlining the controls on their cameras. There is also a separate dry mode dial on the left side, and the buttons on the scroll wheel can be set up as custom buttons. Video recording button is on the top of the camera, but you can start video recording with the shutter button, so that is not a big deal. Overall, I think that handling is the best in class. Basically the only thing that I miss is the joystick, but that is not a common feature in this category, so overall big thumbs up for the handling. G95 uses super soft and quiet mechanical shutter just like the G85, so I like that as well. There are also connectors for battery grip, which is very rare in this category, and you can use the same battery grip as with G85. G95 also has in-camera flash, which is something that you won't get on higher-end cameras. G95 shoots 4K video of course, but there is one significant downside, and that is the crop. It has same 1.26x crop as the GX9, so if you are shooting at 12mm or 24mm full frame equivalent, it crops it to 15mm or 30mm full frame equivalent. That means that your 12 to 60mm lens might not be wide enough for all-round use. 4K video still looks very good, there is a lot of details, although not as much as with the G9 or GH5 with full sensor 4K. Crop also affects the low light capabilities because the sensor area that is being used is smaller and there is no downsampling to compress the noise. If you want that full sensor 4K, you just have to go with G9 or GH5. The upside is that there is no recording limit. Fortunately, the 1080p video is the best in class with a lot of details, so shooting wide-angle shots at 1080p and upscaling that to 4K is an option, although it is not ideal. G95 can also shoot 1080p slow-motion video up to 120 frames per second. It works only with manual focus, automatic exposure, and no sound recording. The image quality is not great in this mode, but it is still a nice option to have. Another addition is the V-Lock L that comes pre-installed on the G95. It captures a lot of dynamic range, but the G95 can only shoot 10-bit footage, so in some situations there might not be enough color information for grading the V-Lock, so I only recommend using it if you know what you're doing, but I'm still glad that it is available on G95 without paid update. Overall, I would say that the G95 is great 1080p video camera. For 4K, you might want to get the G9 instead. One of the reasons for that is also the autofocus. One more thing that I will mention is that you can use auto ISO in manual movie mode, unlike with the G85, which was super annoying. G95 uses 49-point autofocus system. It is contrast-based DFD system of course, and for stills it works very well. There are no issues when you are using the G95 for usual stuff such as the landscapes, non-moving subjects, street photography, and so on. Face and eye autofocus are available as well. Regarding the video autofocus, it works very well in 1080p. The autofocus is very reliable and there is almost no hunting if you are shooting 1080. The important thing is that it won't start refocusing without a reason. Even the tracking in video is pretty good. In 4K it is a bit different. G95 probably struggles a bit with processing power, so the autofocus is slower and less reliable in 4K, and there is also more hunting. Panasonic G9 and GH5 actually have very good autofocus even in 4K video, but the G95 unfortunately can't match those. There are also autofocus adjustments for video, here you have the same options as with the GH5. If you shoot 4K, be careful with those, because those may introduce more hunting. If you remember that special feature that I mentioned in the beginning of the video, that is the OLED screen. For me personally, it is one of the most impressive things about this camera. The resolution is standard 1.04 million dots, but the brightness, colors, and the contrast are just awesome. It is a different league in comparison with the G9 for example. It actually makes a big difference in overall shooting experience. Seeing nice image quality even before you take the shot is very pleasant, and I hope that Panasonic will be putting these in their new cameras. In rare occasions, it might be less visible in direct sunlight, but I will happily live with that. The screen is also fully rotatable, which is great if you are a vlogger, and mic input has been moved up, so it won't obstruct the screen anymore. The viewfinder is OLED as well, it has 2.36 million dot resolution and 0.74 times magnification. It is one of the best viewfinders in the class, bright enough and sufficiently sharp, so I like this viewfinder a lot. As always, the user interface is a big strength on every Panasonic camera, including the G95. Everything was made to be controlled using that great OLED touchscreen, options in the menu are large enough, the quick menu contains everything that you might want to change on the go, you can also customize buttons on the 4-way pad and buttons on the touchscreen. This will especially help users that shoot mostly with their smartphone. Touchscreen also works well for moving the focus point, so as I have said, the user interface is a great strength of the G95. G95 uses the same battery as G85 and it is rated for 290 shots, which is about average in this class. Considering that it has to power that in-body image stabilization, it is not a bad result, but I recommend having at least one spare battery for a full day of shooting. The battery can be charged in camera. Unfortunately, G95 uses micro USB port, the charging is pretty slow and the camera can be only charged while it is turned off. It is definitely better than nothing, but in 2019 it should have been USB-C. Micro USB charger is included though, so that is nice. G95 uses UHS-2 compatible card slot positioned on the grip side. That is in my opinion better placement in comparison with battery compartment. Headphone output is also a new addition, so more advanced filmmakers will appreciate that. One more detail that I have noticed is that when you plug in external mic, audio levels will automatically appear on the screen, so I like that a lot. G95 can shoot 9 frames per second with mechanical shutter and autofocus single, and 6 frames per second with autofocus continuous. That is okay, although there are some competitors that can shoot more than 10 frames per second with continuous autofocus. If you use 4K photo mode, you can shoot 8 megapixel JPEGs at 30 frames per second, which is a nice option. You can get G95 in a kit with Lumix 12-60mm f3.5 to 5.6 lens, or with new 14 to 140mm f3.5 to 5.6 version 2. I've used the 12-60mm Lumix for a very long time on my G85 and it is still my most favorite non-premium kit lens. Just like the G95, it is weather sealed and the build quality is very decent. 12-60mm is very useful focal range, including that 24mm full frame equivalent on the wide end. It is pretty sharp, the contrast is good as well, although with that aperture it might have a bit of smartphone look, but it is still a very good all-round lens. Unfortunately, it is not possible to buy it in kit with Leica 12-60. To sum up, I have to say that my overall impressions of the G95 or G90 or G91 are very positive. I like the build quality, image quality of the stills, very effective in-body image stabilization, handling and controls, great OLED screen and the viewfinder. The autofocus is very good while shooting stills and 1080p video. The biggest downside are the limitations associated with 4K video. That is mainly the crop, slower and less reliable autofocus, and decreased low light capabilities. I would generally say that the G95 is very good mid-range stills camera and 1080p video camera with the option to shoot 4K. That makes it very suitable for vloggers and travelers. I would also highly recommend the G95 to those who are shooting with their smartphone and want to try a real interchangeable lens camera. If you intend to shoot mainly 4K video, I would recommend getting the G9 or GH5 instead. Those can shoot 4K using the whole sensor with much better autofocus. Especially the G9 is just a little bit more expensive at the moment, so I will also make a comparison video of these two. So that's it for this video, thank you for watching, I hope that you liked this video and that you found it to be useful. Stay tuned for more videos and maybe consider subscribing if you don't want to miss my future content. I appreciate your feedback in form of thumbs up or thumbs down. If you would like to ask anything or share your opinion, please do so in the comment section and see you next time.